students in Sangasco, our Jerusalem correspondent, is working the story for us. And I'll explain to our viewers why this trip by the President of Saudi Arabia.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight as we start our Thursday talk series. And today we have a great topic dealing with difficult people. And I'm sure all of us have had an opportunity to encounter someone difficult along the way in our life. So for all of you joining on Facebook and YouTube, welcome. Everybody that's live in person on Zoom, thank you. And for all of you that are on Zoom, feel free to keep your camera on, feel free to unmute if you have a question. But if you don't have a question, just make sure you are muted. We do have a couple of programs that are going to be coming up. So on this weekend, we have a workshop, self-care and true well-being. So if you have not seen that, please feel free to sign up. It's going to be a great talk. And today, so the topic is, can we turn unpleasant interactions into fruitful ones where we feel content, appreciated, no matter what? And Sister Rona was going to be facilitating, but we have a fantastic facilitator, Ines Frank, that is going to be taking you through this. I've been listening to Ines over the last couple of weeks, and she just truly has this in-depth ability to get to the core and get you a practical solution onto this. So we'll be doing question and answers at the end. If you want to put your questions in the chat, please feel free to do so. But I will turn it over to Ines Frank. Enjoy the workshop.
Good evening. Om Shanti. It's, wow, so many of you are here. That's wonderful. I hope I can fulfill some of your desires, wishes, expectations, hopes. Like Sister Suja mentioned, Sister Rona was meant to speak today, but it did not happen. She's actually doing a 7 days meditation course this week, and the time is overlapping. So hope everyone is well and you had a good day. Yes. So tonight's topic, dealing with difficult people. Seems this is something we all have to learn, right? And so it's a relevant topic for all of us. And I'm going to share with you a few thoughts tonight. And of course, that's going to be from a spiritual perspective. We're not going to go too much or at all into psychological aspects. But I hope I can share a few relevant spiritual aspects and practices with you that you can take into your life and increase or enhance relationship building. Because life is really all about relationships, right? And the relationship is between two people. Actually, it starts with myself, even though I'm only one. But at this point in time, there is duality inside. And so then even the relationship I'm having with my own self, that's where really everything starts. And then relationship between me and the world around me, between me and another person. And so there's a dynamic between two people. And if one of those two people changes or transforms or bring in some change in the way they interact, in the way they behave, the relationship is not the same anymore, because it's a two-way relationship, right? Between two people, there's always, both are contributing. It's never just about one person. And it's a very deep aspect that I've been learning on my spiritual journey, and learning continuous experiences, implementing it in life, creating new experiences is an ongoing thing. But everything really starts with myself and is about myself. Now, what does that mean? If I can express myself, if I can play the part, the role, the way I choose to, if I can stay in self-respect, if I can stay within my own dignity, if I conduct myself in a way where I'm also expressing respect to others, and it starts with respect, right? But there are many more qualities involved, of course. Then, well, one is you become a leader in this way because you take the initiative, right? But you are really able to create something very beautiful for your own self and also for others. And whoever wants to join you will join, but definitively for your own self. Because if I choose to live in a world of respect, in a world of peace, in a world of love, in a world of where there is kindness, appreciation, that is then a world where there will also be harmony. And I think we all love and appreciate, of course, appreciate those qualities. So, having said that, tonight we will mostly focus on what I can do in a relationship to make things better, because that's really where the focus needs to be. The moment the focus shifts to the other side, I basically, most of you know, I step out of my power. I have no control over myself because my mind, thoughts of my mind are all connected with the other person and then the wrongdoing, right? And if I stay focused on that, that's what will create upheaval in me. So even though one is to make sure I conduct myself in an appropriate way, in a lovely way, in a respectful manner. And then if I have to deal with people who cross boundaries, people who appear to be very difficult, have aggressive behavior, angry behavior, then again, to the extent that I can, or to the extent I have self-control and don't allow myself to engage in these lower energies, it's a protection for myself. And at the same time, also a big support for the other person. Does that make sense so far? Are we on the same page? Okay, wow, very nice. Thank you for your feedback. And several of you have your videos on, so I also appreciate that. But I know everyone is present and we are together in this room here. So one energy that causes a lot of upheaval is fear, right? And so I might be a fearless person or someone who thinks about the self that I don't have much fear anymore. But maybe in certain situations, certain circumstances with certain individuals, there might be some fear. And it can also be very subtle. So one aspect is to let go of fear. First of all, I have to recognize that it is there. Because otherwise, for example, if there's a challenging relationship, whether it's at work or with a family member, and it would be very easy for me to maintain calm and peaceful, remain peaceful, then it is not a challenging situation, right? It becomes challenging when there's something going on inside of me, because otherwise it would be an easy breeze. So typically, if I have to face a person, interact with a person, work with someone, or maybe it's even I'm the supervisor of someone who is very aggressive or is always very angry and the behavior is not very pleasant, then it's worthwhile to check myself if there's any fear or trace of fear within me. Because when there is fear, there's also aggressiveness. I start to defend. And then I may something faster than I can think, and then I have to apologize or regret or whatever. I won't be happy about what I have said. And there's an impact on the relationship already. So if there's a challenging person, to check the self, what is going on inside of me? How do I feel? How do I feel? And if there's any fear within me, then when I recognize it and acknowledge it, I can go beyond it. I do not have to be under its influence. But the courage here is to actually look inside and see it. Because if I am, and especially if I have a certain, in one or another way, a role of leadership, and there's a challenging relationship, then as a leader, as a guide, if I come across in a disrespectful manner, now I will trigger the other one. And if the other one already, has the tendency to react, or to burst out, or to be very challenging, the relationship will not be easier. It makes everything more difficult. So to the extent that I can actually take care of myself, even at a more subtle level, that will allow also the other person to, cooperate more with me. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be, a big fear, but on a subtle level when you check in with yourself. And that's the critical point, that I have that thought that maybe there is some kind of fear within my own self. And another aspect is actually they go together, to acknowledge or have the courage to admit my own imperfection. if I have the humility to, again, it's about looking inside, right? If I look inside and have that humility to see that maybe there is something that I could have done differently or that I can do differently. Maybe I can be more friendly, more kind. Maybe I have to give extra acknowledgement and appreciation to that person. To see what is the need on the other side, and then have that generosity to actually provide that also. So that would be something extra you are extending just to give comfort to the other person and to help the other person be comfortable with you. Many times it happens also that we trigger something in others and we are not necessarily aware about it. And that's where the self-checking comes in. The attention on my own inner self. And like I said before, to have that humility to see and acknowledge, maybe, okay, I was right, but maybe the way I have said it could have been a little bit different, so that it becomes easier for the other person also to, you know, to work with me. Typically in relationship, we always see the other person, what the other one does or doesn't do. We don't see too much about the self. And so that is also where the ego comes in. This three-letter friend, ego, where I am holding on to some role that I'm playing, to some form of identity that I have created for myself. And whenever there's that ego, there will also be insecurity. I will not feel secure within myself, who I am, because I am not really connected with who I am, but more so with a belief, an idea, an image of what I want to be actually, but I'm not really that one. I am me. And so that insecurity that's connected with the ego, there will always be defense. The ego will never allow me to see what I am doing wrong. The ego will always point towards the other one. And especially when we are dealing with people who are a little bit challenging, the ego that I express or behavior based on ego will trigger the insecurity, the defense on the other side. So especially if I'm in a leading position, one, of course, I can use the power of the position, but again, you know, it's a little bit of a forceful way to do things, and it will not necessarily maintain or keep my inner peace. And so the humility to acknowledge that I could do things differently And as I said before, even though I was right, I said the right, I conducted myself in the right way, and this person needs to do that. But then again, the way I express it, how do I communicate with the other person? That will make a big difference. And I think that's where leadership also comes in. You know, leadership has a lot to do with being a role model. And you want people to cooperate with you, not because of fear, but because they want to contribute. They want to do their best. They want to give their best. And so for that, we also have to be able to see the good in others, even though necessarily it's not always expressed. So a leader also has to have a little bit of a wider vision. And I think the moment I make a choice that within my world, I want to experience peace. I want to stay in my self-respect, no matter what. Not for someone, but because this is what I value. This is what is important for me. This is when I feel really good. And so I am taking the initiative, and I choose to interact on a basis of respect. But then there are also other scenarios in some relationships where people can be used to being mistreated, where people stay in a relationship that is not very healthy. So if I have been allowing others to be, abusive in whatever way, emotionally, maybe even physically, verbally, if I, over a longer period of time, allow people to treat me in a way that is not very good, not very respectful, and I never set a boundary, that then creates also a problem. And so to learn to set boundaries for the self. And the important aspect here is that we need to do that with respect. And I think this is one of the maybe even greatest challenges, but at the same token also probably one of the most elevated actions that we can perform, where we give respect to someone who does wrong. But that does not allow that I allow the other one to treat me just in any way. We have to know, we have to understand that we have the right to express the self. And for example, there's a stressful situation because boss's behavior, this and that. I have a choice. I could, for example, say, I cannot work under these conditions. I need to take a break for a few minutes. Now, this can happen in any relationship, but I have to be aware that that I have choices, that I can, and actually it is my right and it is my responsibility to set boundaries for the other person. And if a certain, not just unpleasant, but very inappropriate behavior from the other person continues, maybe I have to, take a bigger step and say, if this continues, I will have to leave. But again, it is a matter how I say it, where I come from. If I just burst out and scream and react, it will not work. But I am in my power. We are in our power when we conduct the self in a very respectful manner. And that starts with my own self. I have to have that value, that self-value, that self-worth, that self-respect. And then recognize if something is going on or continues to go on, even though I have expressed myself appropriately that I do not appreciate this kind of behavior, then I will have to take consequences and act upon that. Anything is possible. But again, I'm underlining that virtue of respect. And if we want to act in this manner, if I choose to be in my power, then just the way I said it, because I choose it, there's something that I value within myself. I am not doing it for the other person. I'm actually doing it for myself, because there's that self-value, there's that self-respect. There's recognition of what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. But if I come from a place of defense, from a place of blame, pointing the finger, and seeing only the wrong of the other one, the wrongdoing of the other one, now that is very dangerous, because this is how I then come down to the same level. And that's then where things escalate. Because the other person may not be even aware and have understanding, and therefore also not make choices where they start to, check themselves, bring in more respect. But these are thoughts that you have. There's an understanding on your side. There's an understanding on our side. And so it becomes my choice, independent what the other one does. And I find in these kind of relationships, it's also it's in every relationship, but especially where there are challenges, to discern between the being, the one who is acting, who is doing, who is speaking, the one I'm in relationship with, versus what that person is doing. Most of you have been joining us in our Thursday talks, workshops, and even meditation courses. You're probably familiar with that concept that we share. So we understand that there's a spiritual being, a soul, in the body. And the body is like a vehicle, a costume that I use to express myself. But I, the being, I'm actually a spiritual being. I'm a conscious being of light. I have self-awareness. I have innate qualities of peace, love, joy, and more. Strength and wisdom are within the being. And so if I want to experiment with that concept in relationships, I am connecting to the being that is subtle, not visible to the physical eye. The eye only sees the body, but I choose to be aware about a spiritual energy, a conscious being behind the eyes. And innately, that being is also good. There's goodness in that being. But for a different reason, this being, this soul is under some influences and is acting now under influence, the influence of negativity, and therefore performing actions and behaving in a manner that is rude, that is disrespectful, that is violent. Now, why is that vision relevant? Again, it starts within myself. If I value peace, harmony, love, happiness, if I have value for those qualities, and this is something I want to cultivate in my own life, then whatever the circumstances are, I need to connect to something good within the other one. Because if I don't, and if I connect with the weakness, with the wrongdoing, with the mistakes, I am connecting with the negative. I'm thinking about, I'm seeing it, I'm thinking about it, and then I will speak about it. In other words, if I connect with the negativity of someone, then this is what I take within my own self. And it will network internally with my own weaknesses. And then, you will find yourself in a place where you not be very happy, where your own mind gets agitated, where you start to blame, where you start to see the negative and act negative. But that secret, which is not a secret, but that there is an invisible being, a spiritual being behind the eyes in this body, doing everything, and acknowledging that that being is under some influence, but innately a being of goodness, the same as I. So then we are connecting to the positive, and at the same time, and this is very, very important now, at the same time, I recognize that what that being is doing now is not okay. But I don't condemn the being. I totally disagree with what that being is doing. So in this way, I'm able to maintain a positive link, the positivity within my own self. I'm a support for the other one, but at the same time, because of my own self-value, I will set boundaries in that relationship. And they could look, there are many different ways how those boundaries can look like, dependent on the need. Maintaining the link to someone's goodness that is not expressed, and they're doing something that is really not okay, must not be a threat for me. if I am in my own self-respect. But at the same time, I will not allow this to continue to happen. This is where I need to set my boundaries. Because if I don't, the other person will just continue with the abuse. It could be any form of abuse. Just constantly angrily speaking and making a big thing out of small mistakes, overreacting, that kind of aggressiveness already. If that continues over a long period of time, it's not healthy. And it's also not appropriate for me to allow myself to be treated like that. So but of course, if I don't see, if I don't recognize, and here we are connecting and touching on the spiritual rights of the being, of us, of a soul, if I don't recognize that is actually my responsibility, my right to set boundaries here, then I will not do it. And another reason why many times we don't do it is because we don't want to lose the relationship. We don't want to break the relationship, which is actually a very elevated thought, is something very, very good. But if there are certain conditions, and again, that could even be at work, or certain working conditions, or at home in the family, with people where boundaries are continuously being crossed, I will have to put a halt to it. So that comes to that is one of my responsibilities. This is how I care for myself. But then again, we have to do it in a respectful manner. I'm doing it out of self-respect. Because if I scream at the other one, if I yell at the other one, if I just, be very, or on the other hand, very, very emotional, it's not going to help. The moment I go into anger, the moment I start to scream and all these kind of behaviors or expressions, I am not in my power. And I will also say and do things that are not appropriate, and then things can escalate very easily. So in a way, to kind of round up before we go into the discussion, it's maybe a little bit of a something challenging that I'm going to put out now, but also something for us to think more deeply about it, that in a way, there are no difficult people. Because whenever, and the same is true also for situations or problems, in a way, there are actually no problems. When we consider something to be a problem, we consider someone to be a problem or to be difficult if it puts me on the edge, if their behavior or the situation, the circumstances are challenging my own self-respect, my own self-value, my own self-worth. And if I'm in danger of stepping out of it, of losing it, of giving it up, not losing, giving it away, that's when we start to consider something to be challenging, someone to be difficult. the situation, the person is touching on a weakness within my own self. And so the fear then also is that I get peaceless again, that I will behave that I will regret afterwards, that I lose my self-respect. So the fear is actually never about the other person. The fear is actually that I lose my own peace again. And that kind of fear develops if I have lost my peace over a period of time, multiple times, because I didn't pay attention. But then I say, no, I fear this person, I fear this situation, or this is a problem, this person is difficult. It's just because I'm challenging myself here at the same time. It's because I haven't recognized or understood most appropriate way of how to deal with that situation, with that person, this situation, from a spiritual perspective, from a place where I remain stable within my self-respect. And I think something that is very important in these cases is whenever I feel triggered, we have to have the humility and look inside. We have to acknowledge our goodness, our strengths, but then also have the humility to see my own imperfection and be willing to use my inner capacity, use my strength to overcome my own weaknesses. So instead of defending, instead of denying, or putting on a mask, or go into aggressive, forceful, bossy behavior, to know that there's an area God revealed where I still need to work on myself, where I need to empower myself, and will need have some patience. But if I value the self-respect, the respect for the self, then I will probably choose and go that direction. And it is, of course, also possible that I find myself at times in a situation where I am not clear of how best to respond here. And in this situation, it's always good to remain silent, but not in a passive way, not in an aggressive form, of course, but silent where I have good wishes, good feelings for the other person and for myself, and where I'm willing to, because I may need some time to get some clarity, but also there are situations where maybe nothing needs to be said, where the other person just had such a need to express in whatever way. And if I stay in my self-respect, if I stay in my own peace, then, and I just listen without taking it in, but giving that person the space to express. Now that is, of course, also a possibility. And lastly, I mentioned about the soul, the spiritual being. The more we can see that and connect to that light within, and I've spoken it by naming different virtues, but then also to connect to others, to connect to the light of others. And those of you who believe in a higher power, in a supreme being, is a non-physical being, being of light, source of all virtues, source of goodness, the source of all spiritual powers. If I connect to that being, and allow that light to shine on the other one, that also can become a form of protection for myself. If there's some challenging energy expressed on the other side. So the more genuine I come across to the other one, that will naturally calm down some forceful energy that is in the other one, that is influencing that other being. So maybe I cannot it's not just about what I need from that person or what that person needs to do, but maybe the first step in order to get their cooperation, for them to develop that interest and that strength, to give their best, to do their best. Maybe I need to serve them in a more incognito way, in a more silent manner, where I am connecting to their goodness, recognizing, okay, they are acting under some influence. And so if I can be of support for someone in this way, the dynamics in relationships definitively change. Okay, so I will stop at this point and let's see if there are some comments or questions, and then we can do a meditation.
There's nothing on this side. There's a couple people that commented, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute your mic and you can ask Sister Inez directly.
Let me ask you, was it clear? Can you relate to what has been shared?
Oh, I want to ask a question.
Please.
What do you mean by when that the person has been under some influence?
Okay, it's a nice question. So from the spiritual perspective, we understand that we are souls, right? And every soul is a being of goodness. It's like I am peace, but I can feel angry. I am not anger. So I'm under the influence of anger, for example, but that doesn't mean that this is who I am. In terms of who I am peace. And then when someone is under some influence, then okay, this is a soul, it's a being of peace, but that being is under the influence of anger and is therefore reacting, but under the influence of ignorance, the influence of ego, the influence of jealousy, you know. That is one aspect why people act negatively. And another aspect is, and many times they are combined also, we know from our own selves, sometimes we know what the right thing to do, but still I don't do it. And that might be because I just don't have the strength to do it. So when there is not enough strength, we also commit and go with the lower energy. With the lower energies, meaning some form of negativity. And whenever there is negativity expressed, that person is not using their virtue. Negativity is the absence of light. Now, if I use self-respect, for example, if I use kindness, now there cannot be anger. Or if I use love. But if there is no love, if there's no self-respect, if there's no self-value, then I will act in a negative way. One is ignorance, one is not to have enough strength to be patient for enough. For example, I'm patient for 5 minutes, but after 5 minutes, the patience is gone. So it's not that I can't be patient or something wrong with me, but I simply have to practice this a little bit more. I don't have enough strength at this point in time. And so these kind of thoughts I find are very useful, because then we don't go into blame or hopelessness, whether it's for the self or for the other one. You know, the art is to remain and stay connected with the light, with our own inner light. And to the extent that I'm connected with my light as a soul, as a being of goodness, to that extent, I'm able to be connected to the light of others. And then on the same token, if I find myself sometimes under the influence of maybe frustration, upsetness, anger, and so on, how do I deal with myself? Can I be compassionate and guide myself back to the light? Or do I just give in and don't care? So how do I deal with myself? What's the attitude towards myself when I find myself under some influence of negativity? I recognize it, put a full stop to it, remind yourself about your goodness, about your gifts, about your strengths, appreciate what you have, be grateful, and you're back on track, reconnected to love, reconnected to your soul, reconnected to what really values. And this is what it means to be in your power. And so the art is how long and under what circumstances can I hold myself in that place of power. And each time I move away from it, now that is when we think something is difficult, but we see it on the difficulty on the outside, we don't see it inside. But then spiritual understanding is now telling me that, no, wait, it's not the outside. The outside is just a trigger. Let me check within me. And again, there's self-respect, there's humility. Let me check what is going on within me and let me help myself. And this has nothing to do with selfishness. And for that, I will need to take time, quality time for myself during the day, even if they're just few moments where I need to check in, need to feed my soul, nurture my soul, by reminding myself of all the goodness that is there, that I am full and complete. But I like going to the gym, I need to exercise my muscles.
Sister Rina, there's about 3 more questions that we have. The first one is, would love some suggestions on sometimes it's just better to be silent. And then we have you want me to go all of them at once, or would you like to do one at a time?
Maybe one at a time.
Okay.
For example, there are moments where I am not clear how to handle something or someone. I'm not clear maybe what the matter is about. I can check in, I can ask, but then especially if the being has the need to talk, the need to express, and they do it in a more forceful way, I'm silent. I have good wishes, I hear you, I value, but I do not take it in. the frustration they are letting out, or that anger, that upsetness has nothing to do with me. I don't take it in my heart. But I connect to the light of the other one silently, have good wishes, maintain that pure vision of hope, and have the faith that the dark period will end and that one will come back to its own goodness. Whenever I'm facing, or I have to face aggressive behavior, is good to be silent. Make sure I am with myself, I am in my power, position yourself. And if there is really something to say, you say it, but maybe say it at the time where the other one is receptive. Typically, when someone is very angry, they are not receptive for anything. Anything you say can things make just worse. So be silent, but don't take sorrow. Don't take it in your heart. Stay in your self-respect. And then later on, when things have calmed down, express yourself respectfully.
Sister, it's just a follow-up question to that. Sometimes some of us use silence as a weapon. How do you know if in a situation you're not using silence to shut down the other person?
Nice point. Yeah, these subtle things inside to check. Om Shanti. The internal mantra of a chant of Om Shanti. Om, I'm a soul distinct from this body, and Shanti, I am peace. I am a peaceful soul. So the effort to stabilize in that silence within the truth that I am, Om Shanti. And when I can stabilize within that, when my feelings are clean, my attitude is clean, then I know I'm in the right place. However, there are times where we need to say something to actually see how stable am I actually, how true is my pure form of silence. So it's a subtle thing, but honesty, to check the self with honesty, have that intention and that openness, and not to be afraid, when to recognize that maybe, wait a moment, I am not peaceful at all. So again, compassion for the self, respect for the self, bring yourself back to the light, to peace, stabilize. You see, all of these things have priority before I say anything.
Thank you. Next question is, anger is sometimes caused by anxiety and fear. How would one respond to a person whose anger is triggered by his anxiety?
Yeah, these kind of situations we have more and more. I think overall, and I am connecting it what we were just speaking about, many people come and speak and express themselves from this place. So I find, or what we find, is more and more important. One, for me to recognize where the other one comes from and not judge them, not blame them, but understand there's something going on in them. No one likes to be unhappy. No one wants to be angry. And we don't know what people are going through and for how long. So to have that kind of compassion, that consideration, that form of love and self-respect. I need to have that stay in my self-respect and have that compassion for other ones, so that I do not take sorrow from that situation. Do you understand? So to just be compassionate is not enough. You have to be in a self-respect so that I do not take what someone is unloading personal. I must not take it in my heart. It has nothing to do with me. It's that I'm giving space for that person to express it. And silently having these pure wishes. And my compassion is reaching out by not judging that, but understanding there's something they are going through. It's like a crying out of help. And the more we can serve, attend others in this way, I think it can become a support. And then help them also to see their own goodness.
Thank you, Sister Inez. And just from a personal note, dealing with somebody who has PTSD and cannot control their anxiety, the more we stay calm, it's amazing how our energy will help them to let go of that anxiety and their PTSD sometimes. So just a personal note. And the next question is, how does one develop self-respect?
Self-respect, it's all, considering time now also, but it's all connected to a deeper understanding of who I am. And here at the Brahma Kumaris, we understand, we practice, we share that we are all souls, and soul is innately good. And so to have self-respect, I have to have value for who I am. And in the context of spirituality, that means that I take the value, the respect, the power that I have as a spiritual being, not from any physical source. But I build that up based on a very deep understanding and realization that I am a pure soul, a peaceful soul, a loveful soul, a happy soul, a wise soul, a strong soul. That is who I am eternally. And for different reasons over time, we lose our strength, we come under the influence of darkness. But this is now the time where I have to, or where I can move back to the light. And this is where our choice comes in. So the respect for myself of who I am, from a spiritual perspective.
We have two more questions, Sister Inez. One is, if someone is so determined only to see the negative in you, but you still have to interact with them, how do you keep your positive attitude going to see the good in that person?
Practice, 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 and practice. And I need to practice at times ahead of time, not only when I'm in front of the person. And then also that practice also includes, I can take time for meditation, visualize, empower, first of all, empower yourself, connect yourself to the light. Visualize that person in your mind. And then you visualize how you want to see yourself in front of this being. Now, this is a very powerful exercise where we are able to rewrite the script, where we are able to change our neural networking. So the neurons in our brains, the tendency, the characteristics are all in the soul, but they also manifest in the brain. So if I visualize myself in a situation or in a relationship, the way I choose to see myself, not the way I used to be or I used to behave, where I cross boundaries, but how do you see, how do you want to be? How do you see yourself relating to this person? And do this practice daily if it is a very challenging person, you still have to interact. And you will notice, to the extent you can do that and reframe your own perspective in that visualization to that extent, then when you meet that person, you will be able to do it. It's all a matter of how much can I stay within my own light? And so if the challenge becomes bigger than my capacity to hold myself in the light, then I just need to keep empowering myself. But then also along with this other visualization exercise, I think you can achieve success very soon. And that, of course, includes checking your subtle fears. Because if I have already a history with someone, there's memories inside. So I now need to rise above those memories, and I need to actively and proactively choose my behavior. And you can do that. You can play that out, first of all, within your mind. And then physically, when you're in front of the person, it will be so much easier.
Thank you, Sister Ines. One last question. I think you already answered it. It says, any suggestions on staying consistent when trials come our way?
Yeah. The only thing I have to, I can add here is that yes, we have the intention, we have understanding. There is that intention to do it in the right way, and we practice, and then test papers will come. That means people's situation will come in your way, yeah? But now here the trick is, if I look at that thing that's coming in front of me as a problem, as a situation, I don't want to deal with it, it will be a problem. But if you realize that this is a test paper, like also in school, the test papers, right? Unless I perform the test, how will I know where I am? So it's a test paper to check for me where I am, how far, where's my strength, where's my weakness, how strong have I become? And then keep practicing. Keep a chart. And every day in the evening, look back, first empower yourself, then look back into your day without judgments, simply to assess how it went. Look at the good things, look at the things that didn't go so well without judgment. And then see where I failed, where I missed, where I got trapped, without judgment, with compassion, and then think of a plan, what to practice, how to practice to overcome that gap. Do you understand? So to understand where my weaknesses are is very good, but I also have to understand and accept my strengths, my goodness, my power. And that's also then where I know that I am not under the influence of illusion of ego, if I can face my both extremes, my highest and my lowest without judgment.
Thank you, Sister Inez. For everybody that has requested the recording, it is going to be on YouTube. And all the people that are listening, please visit the YouTube site, and I have the link in Zoom. And Sister Inez, are we going to close with the meditation?
Yeah, if this is okay, because it was already a little bit late.
Totally up to you.
Okay, so yeah, then let's do meditation for a few moments. So sit straight. And for the next few moments, I choose to touch base with my true self. For that, temporarily, I choose and allow myself to let go from the world around me, what happened, even the space, all the thoughts that are running through my head, sensations that are there. I notice, acknowledge, but then we want to go deeper within, deep in my consciousness, knowing that peace, pure love, joy, happiness, strength and wisdom lie at the core of my being. It's like when you dive deep into the ocean, the deeper you go, the calmer it becomes. With this aim, I give permission to myself to see all the destructive thoughts, all the different things that are going on in my heart and in my head. But like diving through the waves, I go deeper within, and the focus of my attention is on my innate quality of peace. I am a peaceful soul. Om Shanti. I am a peaceful being. I value peace. I value respect. I value kindness. I value love. But at the same time, I have the strength to set my boundaries so that no one else can cross them. And if in the past people have crossed my boundaries and I took sorrow of that, now I can forgive myself that I have allowed that to happen. I did the best I could, and still it happened. I forgive myself. I let go. I respect my inner goodness, and I choose to return to it. For that, I let go of the past. It is okay. It happened. Everyone did their best. Now is the moment where I have a choice to just be in the moment, appreciate life, appreciate who I am, appreciate who is in my life. And through that appreciation, my deeper love emerges. I feel very good. I feel strong within. And whatever challenges come along, my attitude is that of an opportunity. I see those challenges as opportunities. An opportunity for me to grow. Life is for me, not against me. As I have many qualities and the goodness inside, in the past, I have stepped away from it. So those test papers are just reminders for me to use my virtues, to use my goodness. Remember that this is deep within you. Know it, reach out to it, and use it. This is to have mercy for myself. Mercy so that I stay in the light and be with the light. And then there's the joy, the beauty of silently seeing the light in everyone. Check yourself, how empowered you feel, how good you feel by seeing the goodness in everyone while setting my own boundaries.